Hi everyone, this is Kimberly. And so for my research design memo, I have kind of been using this class to help me brainstorm ideas. I am at the end of my pre dissertation, and so I haven't finalized what my prospectus is going to be. So I've been in this class kind of taking some ideas and fleshing them out and seeing what kinds of methods, what kinds of things do I want to be my priorities when I am finalizing my prospectus. So, first, gonna tell you about some potential directions that I'm thinking about. First, I have been really interested in youth conceptualization of disability. So, what do you think disability is, and what has brought them to that understanding? What do they think ableism is, and what do they see for the future of disability and accessibility? And this would be with youth who have disabilities and youth who do not have disabilities. And I think that it's important to talk to I think this is important to look at because we want to see just what is the current understanding right now, and how can we help, and how can we reduce ableism. And I think it's especially interesting for youth today because Gen Z has been really active and vocal about promoting equity and mental health, and I want to see how that lines up with how they're thinking about disability. Another option is looking at youth disability identity. So, just talking with students who have disabilities and talking to them about how they identify. Do they identify as a person with a disability? And what does that mean to them if they do? What do their what does disability identity mean to them, and things like that. Another option would be talking to teachers about the same thing. I am more drawn to working with youth, but I also understand the value of talking with the adults who work with the youth, and because they have a lot of influence over the way that students learn about disability. Another option that a professor just suggested to me this week, so it isn't completely fleshed out at this point, but I am currently on a project where we are working in juvenile justice facilities, and so looking at disability there, especially with a discrete perspective. And so, discrit is an application of critical race theory where it's looking at how disability and racism are both built into the structure of our society, and how those two concepts really build on each other and overlap. And so, it's a lot about intersectionality, and but also just how our concept of disability is influenced by race and vice versa. And so I don't really know exactly what methods I would want to use with this quite yet, but it's something that I am starting to think about. And I would probably be thinking about how I could use discrit in any of these topics that I am thinking about. So, some different methodology and methods that I'm thinking about. Well, first, I am primarily interested in doing interviews, semi-structured interviews, and then potentially a focus group with multiple participants, where we can um, kind of tie some of the ideas together. And and so I would be interested in grounded theory, especially if I'm looking at how a population conceptualizes disability. I think it would be really helpful to be able to kind of create a grounded theory and figure out how the different ideas that the participants have connect I am also interested in phenomenology. I've done phenomenology before, and so more familiar with it. And it would be more helpful if I'm thinking about what is a population's experience of this specific phenomenon. So maybe of special education, or or just school in general, or disability, or something like that. So it would depend on what my research questions end up being. And I'm also really interested in ethnodrama and found poetry in particular. I think with youth, I think it is really important to involve youth in different ways in the research. And I think that one way is to use these different arts based methods. I think that having a having a drama presentation or a poetry presentation makes the material a lot more accessible and allows the presentation of the material to stay more true to the words of the participants, which I think is really helpful when you're working with youth. And so I'm really interested in those ideas. I just haven't talked to my advisor about it yet, and so I don't know how well received that would be by my committee, but we'll see. And in particular, interested in vivo coding, which helps you to be able to apply that to ethnodrama and to found poetry, and then pattern coding to kind of bring those in vivo codes together and find some themes that I can highlight. When thinking about ethics and reflexivity, the kind of first thing that I'm thinking about is I would really love to do a more participatory research approach. So even if I'm not able to, if it's not, we're all co-researchers thinking about just how are you participating in this, and what are you getting out of this research, whether we are using the information for you to complete an assignment or something. But I would ideally love to, especially if I'm doing the ethnodrama found poetry, would like to collaborate on creating those things with the participants. And I would be doing a lot of reflecting on research practices, lots of memos, lots of field notes to make sure that I am documenting every step of the process, which I think is important for especially working with youth, and then having someone to check over my documentation and make sure everything looks like it is lining up, and that I'm sticking to my IRB. And then also, I think it's important to, I'm thinking about, how I'm going to engage with the stakeholders. So, I mean, first of all, I'll want to get consent from the parents of the youth, and assent from the actual youth. And so I'd want to make sure that that conversation, the materials that they get are in a really accessible format, and that I am anticipating power dynamics and what reasons they might feel obligated to say yes, or just different ways that we might have influence over each other, and how I can work to recognize those, and to prevent those from being an issue in the project. And then also, I think it's good to kind of create a contract or agreement at the beginning. So, yes, you've signed this assent form, but especially if we are, I mean, we're both participating in this. So, what kinds of things are you going to expect from me? What am I going to expect from you? What do we want at the end of this? And just making sure that that is a collaborative process, um, so that we feel like we're all getting something from it. And also, I think that especially with youth, I'm I might sort of know them. I might not know them at all when we start working together. And so I want to make sure that I am finding some trusted adults who can work as cultural brokers to help me build rapport, to help me build trust, and to make the students comfortable. And so that is, or those are my thoughts for now. It's obviously in flux, but I look forward to exploring it. I've really enjoyed class with all of you, and I look forward to hearing more about your research.